Welcome back to the Curiosity Cave. This will be my second episode. Today I'm doing the 1939 through 46 Salutation exhibit set. I don't have the complete set, but I'll show you the 40 some odd examples that I have. Some of the variations to look for. It could be the size of the Made in USA. It could be Made in USA is on the right or left. Could be the pose is larger, airbrushing. It's a lot of different variations, a lot of things that I nerd out about. I get excited about. See, that's what I look like when I'm excited about baseball cards. And I can go through each year, 39 through 40. They only had 16 cards that were printed those years, but there's some great cards, including Lou Gehrig, which is a very difficult card to find. And then in 41, they also did 16. Then from 42 to 46, they did 32 cards each year. So every year from 39 to 46, the war years, they printed cards. So actually, there wasn't another company that printed baseball cards consecutively during that time period. It wasn't until Topps came along that their consecutive streak of printing cards was surpassed. So this set is full of Hall of Famers. You'll see Joe DiMaggio, Hank Greenberg, Bill Dickey, Bob Feller, Carl Hubbell, to name a few. And then the next one, I think I'm going to maybe do the all-time greats, Hall of Famers. It's got the fancy frames on them. I've got a few of those. And let's get started. It's gonna be real nerdy, real boring if you're not into baseball cards, but it's just, I'm so far down the rabbit hole. I love looking at all the differences and nuances. So enjoy, or speed it up to 1.5 times, 2 times, whatever. I'm not going to be offended. It's a very small niche in the hobby, but it's growing. People are starting to like them because you can get cards of Hall of Famers from their playing days that you normally can't afford. You can't find them. They're not with the right team. So I don't know. I'm going to go ahead, go through what I have for the war era 1939 through 46 exhibits. So here's the first card I'll show you. I've got them in my album or binder in alphabetical order, and it's the Salutation exhibits, of course. I'll point out the key thing on each of the cards so you can help age them. This one says Made in USA on the right side. And there's a difference in the size between the early ones and the later ones, like 1946. According to my checklist, he was only printed on the Made in USA on the right side in 1946. So we have a 1946 Luke Appling. Red Barrett, he's got a nice baseball centennial patch. I love those. 1939 is when they were on the uniforms. But you can tell he's right side, so it's later 40s. Actually, it was only printed in 1946. Lou Boudreau, Sincerely Lou Boudreau. Made in USA is on the right side on both versions of Lou Boudreau. One of them depends on the size of the Made in USA, of course. This one I have listed as a 9/16, so it'd be a 1946 print. Hall of Famer. It's a nice batting pose of him. That's what I like about the exhibits. I wish they still had like the field background they did in the 20s, but I like the full figure batting pose, so you can see what his follow through is here. Here's Dolph Camilli, Very Truly Yours. As you can see, the Made in USA is on the left side, but he was printed several years in the 40s. They kept using the same design, same figures, same pose, everything. So if you got a 1939 or a, say, a 1945, they all look the same. Phil Cavaretta, he's pretty easy. He was only printed 1 year, 1946. And this is the only pose you'll see of him from the Salutation exhibit set. And yes, it's the right side, Made in USA. Arlen Clift, Very Truly Yours, Made in USA. Is on the left. The original card was printed in 1940, and then they kept the same design going through till 1945. And it's kind of unique. It's a printed name instead of a signature looking name. Yours truly, Paul Derringer. I've heard the name pronounced Deringer, but I'll go with Paul Derringer. Sounds cooler. But you can see that he has the Made in USA on the right. His first card was printed in 1941. So 1941 is the year they started moving him over to the right. And the same picture pose continued all the way through 1945. Bill Dickey, Cordially Yours. He has two versions. You can get it with the Made in USA on the right or Made in USA on the left. Now, the original card of his was made in 1939 and used all the way up through 1945. And you can see that that's on the left. So this is the earlier version of Bill Dickey. And what do we have here? Joe DiMaggio. His first card was printed in 41, and you can find a 41 through a 45 version. It has a bigger 3/4 inch Made in USA on the bottom. This is a smaller Made in USA, so it was printed in 1946. This card was also printed into the 50s. So I have it as part of my 47 through 66 set also. So I try and keep all the DiMaggios I can find anyway, but Joe, like Ted Williams, can be found all the way up into the around 1959-60, and Made in USA gets changed to Printed in USA for Ted. And he's got tan and black and white versions. But as far as Joe goes, he pretty much isn't printed much after his playing days, maybe 52. Big Bob Elliott, only printed in 1946. This is the only version that he has, and my records indicate he is possibly printed after 1946. I don't have verification of that one yet. Rapid Robert, Bob Feller. He's one of the cards that I have an example of from the 1947 through 66 set. Bob has two poses. in the 39 through 46 set. One is a portrait, which is really hard to find. It was printed in 39 and 40. And this is the 1956 pitching version, or 46, sorry. And here's the one that you'll find in the newer exhibits. You can see it's a larger photo. His hat goes through the top of the card, and his shoe touches the bottom of the card. Made in USA is the same. That's the only difference, is that there's a larger image on the newer card, and the 46 card shows the smaller image. Dave Ferris, he's another one that was only printed in 1946. Boston Red Sox. He's into his big windup here. Pretty cool looking card. Jimmy Fox, he's an older printed version. He was could be found in 39, 40, 41, or 42. I'm sorry, not 41, but 42. You can see he's got the left-handed, left side made in USA. Seems to be a pretty common card of the old exhibits to find. I know I don't have Lou Gehrig. That's a 5-figure card nowadays, and I never see it. And besides that, Lou Gehrig was only printed in 1939. Joe Gordon, he's another one that was only printed in 1946 with the New York on his uniform, I should say. Notice made in USA on the right. So in the 47 through 66 version, they changed his uniform from New York to Cleveland. And that's basically the only difference. Made in USA on the right. Yours truly, Hank Greenberg. There's 2 variations. This is the 1960s, and I'm going back and forth too much. 1946 Hank Greenberg. The older one, 41 and 42, is difficult to find. It says yours very truly instead of truly yours. Remember buying this one at an antique shop in North St. Paul, Minnesota. It's fun to come across these when you least expect them. Lefty Grove. Robert Lefty Grove, one of the all-time great pitchers. He was printed in 1941 and 42. Not real easy to find. Mine's just great to have them. And of course, 41 is when they started switching to the right side. Buddy Hassett was printed in the just about every year. He'd 40 through 43 and 45. And he started in 40, so he's got that made in USA on the left side. Got rickety old bag there. First baseman's mitt. Just some awesome stuff if you ever get a hold of cards like that. Jeff Heath. Here's another one with image size variants. I don't have the larger image. It's kind of this one's from 1946. I kind of like how they do best wishes and they change the color of wishes. once it hits his socks. There's probably a lot of other stuff that I'm missing in these cards, but it's fun going through and catching the different variations. King Carl Hubbell with his follow-through. And he was printed in 40 and then 42 through 45, as you can see. Left side usually means 39 or 40. But the card was not changed, so it's on the left side for the whole print run of Carl Hubbell. Bob Johnson, printed 41 through 45. Made in USA on the right. King Kong, Charlie Keller. He has 2 versions also, where you see the Made in USA on the right or the left. If it's on the right, it's 1946. That's what I have here. He's also got that beautiful 39 Centennial patch on his uniform. Bill Lee. He was another one that was printed early 1939. Kept the same design all the way through 45 for him. There he is in his wind-up. Ernie Lombardi, great hitting catcher. He was printed every year except 1942. This one is printed between 43, 45, could be a 41. He also has a 39 only, where you can find the Made in USA on the left. And he was also at the same high school in Oakland that later Frank Robinson, Bill Russell, basketball Hall of Famer, Curt Flood, and Vada Pinson attended. Only a few years earlier, but one of the great hitting catchers, National League batting champion as a catcher. Marty Marion, only printed in 1946. St. Louis Cardinal, all-time great. Nice fielding pose there. Look at that awesome glove. So I learned to catch with a glove like that. My dad's or my granddad's old glove, I just throw the ball up in the air and try and catch it when it came down. So a glove like that brings back memories. Frank McCormick, one of the stars of the 1940 Cincinnati Reds that won the World Series. Here's 2 different versions. The early version here with the Made in USA on the left, and the later version with Made in the USA on the right. As you can see, there's a lot of variations, and I really like to nerd out and find all the variations that I can in these sets. Here's a good example right here. Here's another example of the right and left versions of cards. The older version from 1939, Johnny Mize with Made in USA on the left. And here's the Made in USA on the right. And the one on the right was only made in 1946. The Big Cat, Johnny Mize. And here we have Joe Ducky Medwick. Very best wishes. This is one of the few graded ones that I have. And Ducky Medwick is on a trivia question on Alive recently. You can tell it's an older print, 1940 probably. The trivia question was, who is the last National Leaguer to win the Triple Crown? This is the gentleman right there, Ducky Medwick. George McQuinn. He's another one that was just printed in 1948 for this version. He also has the other version with Made in USA on the left. Nice reach there to get that ball. First baseman's mitt there. Hal Newhouser, famous World Series pitcher for the Detroit Tigers. 1945. Well, he's great in 44 and 45. He had quite the pitching staff back then. And Hal was only printed in 1946 in the Salutation set. No variations on Made in USA or its photos or anything. Nice patch on the arm. Very determined look by Hal Newhouser. Lewis Buck Newsome. This card was printed from 41 to 45. He also has a 1939 version that has the Made in USA on the left side. And the one on that one only has Buck Newsome instead of Lewis Buck. And that's a tough one to find too. Andy Pafko, Chicago Cubs. I had a friend that was a really big Andy Pafko fan. He had a lot of different cards of his. And this pose actually has 4 other variations, but they're found in the 1947 through 66 set, and we'll get into that when I get to the binder with Andy Pafko. It's a lot. They'll have the C airbrushed out, and there'll be black and white version, printed in USA version, dark border version, but we'll get into that later. Mel Ott, he had a fascinating swing where he'd raise his right foot up and uncoil and hit that ball out of the park. Tragic end to his life, but keep his memory alive in baseball cards. And as you can see, there's one version with USA on the left and one with USA on the right. One with USA on the right. That was only printed in 1946. Notice I got a giant Mookie Chilson pinhole punch up there in the upper right corner. And the one on the left has Made in USA on the left. And that one was printed in 39 and then 42 through 45. Claude Passau. Only printed in 1946, only version. Except they got the rare P version. So Claude Passau. Howie Pollitt, 1946 version. He also has an early version with the Made in USA on the left. This is the only one I have currently. Nice wind up, the old glove. What's he throwing there? Does anybody know? Is that a two-seam fastball? Or has he got his thumb bent too much? Pete Reiser. He's only has this for the 1946 version. He also has an earlier version. And the only difference is for some reason the earlier version is on the left and it's a newer print like 1944, so they tend to be on the left prior to that, but as you can see there's differences even in the newer prints. George Snuffy Sternweiss, only version, only year printed 1946. Portrait, he is in the 1947 through 66 set in a fielding pose. Have to see that to believe it. Paul Trout, another 1946 only print. Another great picture on that Detroit staff of the 1940s. Fred Dixie Walker. This is his only pose, only version in the 1939 through 46 set, only printed 1946. Made in USA. He does have a card in the 47 through 66 though, with the D for Detroit airbrushed out. Bucky Walters, here's an example of the size of the Made in USA being different. Cards are just a slightly tint different too. The one on the left is the older one, 42 through 45. The one on the right, the newer one, 46 only. But if you put these up together, you can see that the older one has a wider Made in USA. And that's how far down the rabbit hole I've gone with these. So will I ever finish any of these sets? Who knows? Who knows if all the versions have even been found yet? Lon Warneke, Chicago Cubs great pitcher from the 32 World Series. He was printed between 41 and 45. He's got the wide Made in USA 3/4 inch one. Brings us to the Splendid Splinter, Ted Williams. Ted has two versions in the 39 through 46 set. This is the version that was only printed in 1946. He has another version that shows the 9 on his back, almost like the back of this picture. And the difference between this one and the one that you see in the 47 through 66 set, this one has a bigger picture. You can see if you start the hats at the same, the feet go down farther on this Ted Williams. It's a larger image. This one's printed in USA, and I'll be getting into that again when we get to the 47 to 66 binders. And last but not least, Rudy York. He has two versions. He has the 42 to 45, where it's the 3/4 inch made in USA. And those are the harder ones to find. If I look at my checklist, I've got very, very few of those. And this is the 1946 with the 9/16 inch. Yes, the 9/16 inch made in USA. And yeah, it's just the early ones are harder to find. The later ones are easier to find, just like any other set. So if you stayed here this long, congratulations and thank you. And this is a fun set to go through. I'm going to have even more fun in the 39 or in the 47 through 66 set. There's also the All-Time Greats Hall of Famers set that I have a few examples I'm going to show also.